when Muhammad lusted for his adopted son's wife, Zeyneb bin Jahsh.
I was hoping you'd give the historical
Yeah,
background
because
here.
I want to explain. Muhammad adopted Zayd, and he said to the people, now why did he do it? Understand, look at Zayd's fidelity, how much he loved Muhammad. He goes, I'd rather be a slave than return free with my father and paternal uncle. Muhammad was so touched, he goes, from now on, this man is my son, he's not my slave. So they called him Zayd ibn Muhammad. This is in the commentators. Muhammad married Zayd to Zeyneb bin Jahsh. She refused. She didn't want to marry him. She thought that she was of higher class than him. Muhammad insisted. In 33 verse 36, read the commentators again. It says that a person, a believing man or woman, has no choice in a matter when Allah and his messenger have decided a thing. In other words, he brought a revelation forcing her. You got no say-so in the matter. I want you to marry him. So notice, Muhammad forced her to marry a man she didn't want to marry. It says Muhammad went to visit Zayd and Zeynep at Zayd's home, his son. Zayd wasn't there. Zeynep wasn't veiled. He didn't go inside the house. Zeynep saw him. He didn't go inside the house. He told her basically, tell Zayd I was here. As he walked away, she heard him say, praise be to Allah who turns the hearts. Understand what that means. He just blamed his God for causing him to lust for a married woman, the wife of his son. Now, she was flattered by that. She actually liked it. The Prophet finds her attractive. But let me finish this point. Zayd comes back and says,
Wait, hold on. Before you move on, we need that to sink in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Muhammad goes over to see his adopted son. He's instead greeted by his adopted son's wife, who happens to be one of the most beautiful women in Arabia and who's wearing next to nothing at the time. Muhammad walks away. Praise Allah who causes the hearts to turn. Muhammad believes that it's been revealed to him by Allah that as soon as he sees this hot woman practically naked, Allah wants her to go to me. Allah wants her to be mine. And so, isn't it amazing? Isn't it a miraculous coincidence that as soon as I see this woman practically naked, I suddenly get this revelation that Allah is telling me she's for me. What a coinky-dink. This is a guy that,
but it gets worse.
They wanted the whole story. But
let's finish it, though, because it's going to get worse. So then Zayd came and told Zaynab what happened. She goes, oh, Muhammad came. And he said, why didn't you invite him in? He goes, I did invite him in. He didn't want to come in. He goes, what else did you hear? And then she goes, I heard him say, praise be to Allah who turns the hearts. It says, these are in Tabari. These are the Muslim sources, not Christian sources. Tabari said Zayd realized Muhammad lusted after his wife. Notice Zayd's faithfulness to this Antichrist. He didn't get angry. You know what he did? He went to Muhammad and says, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, I will divorce her for you. Guys, understand the devotion of this man to Muhammad. This man chose slavery. He chose to be a slave to Muhammad rather than freedom. This man was also willing to divorce his wife to satisfy the lust of his adopted father. Do you understand? This man showed more love and devotion to this Muhammad than Muhammad did to his son. Muhammad was embarrassed. He goes, no, keep your wife. Zayd divorced her anyway. And then the verse came down, 33-37, rebuking Muhammad. Muhammad, you hid in your heart what we're about to reveal to you. You told Zayd, who was shown favor by you, keep your wife, and you were hiding in your heart what Allah was about to manifest. You understand what that verse is saying? You were hiding in your heart your true intention. You did want her, but you feared the people rather than Allah. That's what 33-37 says. You were more afraid of the backlash of people for taking your adopted son's wife than you were afraid of Allah, who had decreed this woman for you. And then it says, and the reason why we did this, Muhammad, we did this so that you can set a precedence and example for other adoptive fathers that they can marry the divorced wives of their adopted sons if they so choose. So guys, understand this, and you got to understand this. We got to do a whole session on this. Why did Allah decree lust in Muhammad's heart for his adopted son's wife?
There was a reason. It was important.
Here's the reason. So that Muhammad would be an example for other adoptive fathers that if their adopted sons divorced their wives, the adoptive fathers could marry them. Now understand how sick and perverted that is before I go to the next one.
I want to read the actual verse so people can say that is exactly what Allah is saying.
Let me comment and then you read the verse. Understand how sick and perverted it is. Guys, understand. A man marries his adopted son's divorced wife, and now that wife becomes his adopted son's mother. Tell me how sick and perverted this religion is. But now read the verse so we can finish it. So
again, according to the story here, it wasn't simply that Muhammad was lusting after this woman. And Muslims need to understand, according to the Quran here, Muslims are the ones who need to understand that Allah had a purpose behind Muhammad marrying the divorced wife of his own adopted son. Allah had a purpose. Okay, so there's a reason, right? Because pretty much everyone down through history, every culture has frowned upon marrying the divorced wife of your own adopted son. That's frowned upon. It was creepy to the Muslims. It was creepy to the non-Muslims. So what's Muhammad going to do? Well, as usual, he received a revelation. And it turns out that Allah had a very important reason. It wasn't just Muhammad wanted this woman. He saw how beautiful she was. It wasn't that. It wasn't that Muhammad had reached a stage in his life where he just believed he could take anything he wanted and it would be justified by Allah. It wasn't that. No. Allah had a very important reason for making Muhammad do this, even though Muhammad didn't want to, but Allah had to make him. So here it goes. Sam's already talked about this. We're just reading it. Yeah. So you understand this is what it actually said. Surah 33, verse 37 of the Quran. And when you said to him, to whom Allah had shown favor, so when Muhammad had said to Zayd, and when you had said to him, to whom Allah had shown favor, and to whom you had shown favor, keep your wife to yourself, and be careful of your duty to Allah, and you concealed in your soul what Allah would bring to light, and you feared men, and Allah had a greater right that you should fear him. But when Zayd had accomplished his want of her, meaning he kicked her to the curb because Muhammad wanted her, we gave her to you as a wife, so that there should be, here's the reason, so that there should be no difficulty for the believers in respect of the wives of their adopted sons when they have accomplished their want of them. In other words, once they've divorced them. So Allah says, Muhammad, it was very important of you to marry the divorced wife of your own adopted son. Why? So that there should be no difficulty for the believers in doing that. Do you catch that? According to the Quran, according to Allah, Allah really needed Muslim men to know that it's okay to marry the divorced wives of their own adopted sons. They didn't get it. They didn't understand that they were allowed to take the wives of their own adopted sons. They just didn't get it. They were struggling with this. So Allah, now notice, Muslims, couldn't Allah have just said it, right? Couldn't he have just said, by the way, guys, it's okay. So a couple things here. One, how many people actually struggle with this? Raise your hand in the chat if you actually struggle with, man, I'm really wondering if I need to marry the divorced wife of my own adopted son. How many? I've never met a person who struggles with that, right? So that's one problem. Who is this addressing here other than Muhammad? That's one. Two, if it was a problem for someone, let's assume there were people back then. Why couldn't Allah just reveal it in the Quran? Yeah. Guys, it's okay. Go ahead. So that's it. Why couldn't he just do that? Three, are you serious? This is why Muhammad needs to do it. So it's so important to Allah that he can't just say it. It's so important. It's such a huge issue in the moral realm that everyone needs to understand this so much that Allah can't simply say it. He needs to force Muhammad to do it. And then what's the result for Muhammad? Well, gosh darn it, I just have to go out and marry the divorced wife. Why are you forcing me, Allah? I have to marry this beautiful woman that I've seen practically naked and who I got amazingly attracted to. What torture? I have to do it so for the good of my people. Number four, that's not even enough. Yes. In addition to all of that, in order to justify his relationship with this woman, which again was frowned upon by everyone forever, he has to abolish adoption so that there's no. Okay, go ahead.
What's your excitement? Okay. Bro? I know you want to. Come on,
I get excited, dude. I get excited.
I understand you want to explode, but hold on.
The jury will ignore everything I said after.
Strike that from the record. Okay, now here's where it gets really sick. Here's where it gets. Okay, so now Muhammad, the hero that he is, sacrificed by marrying his adopted son's divorced wife to set a precedence for others. Sacrifice, mind you. But then it gets worse. People started mocking Muhammad. This is again Ibn Kathir and the rest. I'm not making it up. It says that people started attacking Muhammad. He took his son's wife to bed. His son's divorced wife to bed. Because Zayd was called Zayd ibn Muhammad. Guess what, folks? That's when chapter 33, verses 4 and 5, and chapter 33, verse 40 was revealed. It said, Muhammad is not the father of any of you men. Stop calling Zayd his son. And then 33, 4 and 5 says, stop calling adopted sons your sons. That's a saying of your mouth. They are not your children. They're your brothers, your freed slaves. Wait. Muhammad, you said that the reason why you married your adopted son's divorced wife is so you can set the example for other adoptive fathers to do likewise. But now you're telling me adoption is abolished. Zayd was never your son, so it was wrong for you to call him your son. So what in the world are you talking about that you did this to be an example for future adoptive fathers when your God knew, I won't say Muhammad knew, your God knew he was going to abolish adoption. So what example did you set for a practice that your God had already planned in eternity to abolish even before you married your adopted son's divorced wife? Now, why is this damaging, apart from how immoral and evil this action is? Because remember, folks, the Quran is eternal, according to the Sunnis. Meaning, these verses of the Quran existed eternally. They're uncreated. Meaning, before creation, Allah had already determined that Muhammad would take his adopted son's divorced wife and had already determined in eternity to abolish adoption. This was already determined because it's part of the uncreated Quran. Before creation came into being, he already knew this and went ahead, did it anyway, justifying his prophet's lust for a married woman. Lust for a married woman, justifying that his prophet would marry a married woman who was divorced unlawfully in the sight of true God, thereby forcing her to commit adultery. And then, to save face, he abolishes adoption, robbing millions of children in the Muslim world of ever having folks to call their parents, and barren women from ever having a child of their own, because Muhammad abolished adoption to save face.
I find, Sam, that Muslims just don't want people to learn the truth about Muhammad. They don't want people to learn the facts about Muhammad. Even if we had said it even if we had explained everything without any without any added commentary, if we just explain the situation, look what Sam here said. I'm a Muslim and I have a problem with that.
Beautiful.
That is good, and we respect you for that. We respect you for that, Sam, for acknowledging that this is a problem. This is a problem, right? And we can see, and guys, by the way, this isn't the first time, right? What did Aisha say? What did Aisha say? Your Lord hastens
to fulfill your desires.
To fulfill your desires. She noticed anytime Muhammad sees something and he wants it. Oh, look at that! I want that over there. Oh, I want more girls. Oh, I want this 9-year-old. I want this 6-year-old. This is what I want. Anytime Muhammad wants anything, I want more sex life. Whenever I want, Allah reveals a revelation. Allah gives a revelation. This is Surah 66, opening verses of Surah 66. Read the historical background. This is some sick stuff.
Guys, understand what you basically have to believe. Chapter 66 of the Quran is supposed to be uncreated. It's eternal. Chapter 65, that sanctions marrying and divorcing pre-pubescent minors before they've even had their menstruation. That passage is eternal, uncreated. It's always existed. These verses where it talks about marrying your adopted son's divorced wife and then abolishing adoption, they're all supposed to be eternal because the Muslim position, the official Sunni position, and I even asked the Shia, do Shias believe it? They said yes. Well, I don't know if that's all Shia, but anyway, the official Sunni position, what they call the position of Ahl al-Sunnah wa Jama'ah, the Quran is the uncreated speech of Allah. It's beginningless. Do you understand what that means? All these stories in the Quran, all these characters, all these individuals, all these commands have eternally existed. In other words, in eternity before creation, Allah has already in mind Zayd's marriage to Zeynep, Zayd divorcing Zeynep so that Muhammad could marry Zeynep so he can set an example for other adopted fathers, then abolishing adoption. And he already has in mind Muhammad lusting for one of his concubines and then violating his promise to one of his other wives by taking the concubine into the house of his other wife on the day assigned to that wife so he can have sex with that concubine. All of this was part and parcel of the uncreated speech of Allah, which means that in eternity, Allah is busy thinking about all these events, how to satisfy Muhammad, how to create these individuals, to bring about all these things related to Muhammad's life. And you want us to believe the Quran is truly of God? And Muhammad is a messenger? You mean Allah had nothing better to do than think about, yeah, you know what? I want to create Zayd so he can marry Zeynep, so he can divorce Zeynep, so my prophet can marry Zeynep, so he can be an example for adopted fathers, and I'm going to abolish adoption to save my prophet from further humiliation, and I'm going to get busy composing a passage which is supposedly eternal. So I really don't compose it. It's always existed.
Guys, I mean, it's so many problems, but that key issue, right, of Muhammad, why are you marrying the divorced wife of your own adopted son after you're the one who caused the divorce by lusting after her? And Allah's response is, Muhammad has to do this because it's such an important issue for Muslims. They have to understand that it's okay to marry the divorced wives of their adopted sons. Oh, and by the way, adoption is abolished, so this issue will never come up, ever.
And eternally abolished because it existed in
it's
eternal
gone.
Creation. Yeah.
So Allah, in His eternal word, says the reason Muhammad has to jump on his adopted son's wife is because all the Muslim community and all future generations of Muslims need to understand that it's okay to marry the wives of their adopted sons. And in the same eternal revelation, there is no more adoption.
Verily, Allah has fixed the very portion of adultery which a man will indulge in and which he of necessity must commit. Oh, but that's Sahih Muslim. It's not Bukhari. Okay. Sahih Bukhari, volume 8, number 609. Narrated Ibn Abbas. I did not see anything so resembling minor sins as what Abu Huraira said from the Prophet, who said, Allah has written for the son of Adam his inevitable share of adultery, which he's aware of it or not. So Allah has determined the adultery that a person must commit. The adultery of the eye is looking at something which is sinful to look at, like Muhammad did at Zeynep. Allah fixed that for Muhammad. And the adultery of the tongue is to utter that which is unlawful to utter, which Muhammad did with Zeynep when he said Allah turns the hearts, and Muhammad wasn't wrong. It was Allah who made him say that and caused him to have adulterous desires for a married woman. And then it says, and the inner self wishes and longs for adultery, and the private parts that turn into reality or refrain from submitting to the temptation. Muhammad got it right. Allah determined the amount of adultery a person will commit by his eyes, by his tongue, by his heart, and by his private parts, all of which Muhammad did. That's why Muhammad said, Allah turned my heart. Zaynab, don't blame me. Zayd, don't blame me. Allah forced me to desire a married woman, forced me to utter words to cause that married woman to now want to have me because now she sees I'm enticed by her, and then forced me to use my private parts to bring that adultery into fruition. Allah determined all of that. Don't blame me, blame Allah, right?